Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, we are going to talk about big goals versus small goals. And I am putting those in quotes because the truth of it is that there is no such thing as big goals and small goals. But this is a topic that has been coming up a lot recently. I've been hearing it in a lot of different places. So the first one is actually a request. I put a post on Instagram a couple of weeks ago for a video request, and someone submitted this. I don't have big goals. I just want to get our home in order. Goals feel like they are big. Video on small goals, lifestyle that isn't some life-changing goal. And we will get into this more later in the video. But first off, a goal doesn't have to be considered big to be a goal. And second off, I believe that all goals can be life-changing. Another place I heard this sort of topic come up was in a video recently from Cindy. If you know Cindy, I will leave her channel link down below. I adore her so much and I love watching her videos. And she does a lot of planner reviews, especially some like unique niche planners that I've never even heard of before. And she recently did a review on a bucket list planner, which I did actually, like, I would never use that planner, but I did get a little bit of value out of the concept of the planner. In fact, there was one item, like one example that she read out loud that I ended up adding to my like long-term dream ideas bucket list. So while she was reviewing that planner, she made a comment that she felt like her goals were too domestic and too lifestyle focused to really fit within this bucket list planner, and were her goals too boring for a planner like this. And then of course, there's always my own insecurities, right? If you watch my quarterly goals video or my October goals video that went up last week, I have trimmed things down a lot. I have really prioritized. I have very few goals for the quarter and for the month. And so I feel a little bit inadequate about my personal goals. And are they considered big enough for me to be using this massive goal planner? I have a lot going on in my business and some things in my personal life that aren't showing up there. So like when I step back and think about it and like look at the big picture, I'm okay with it. But when I share my goals, I'm like, wow, that feels pretty lame that like that's what I'm writing down. So I have to imagine I am not the only person having these insecurities and having these thoughts about not feeling like my goals are big enough. And so I wanted to do this video. Really, there's not any sort of like tips or tricks or like we're not walking away from this video with like, here's how to implement bigger goals. I want you to walk away from this video knowing that you're not alone. We all feel this way, and that there is no such thing as your goals being too small. There is no such thing as big goals and small goals, good goals, bad goals, right goals, wrong goals. None of those words can be applied to goals. What we have are goals that matter to you and goals that don't matter to you. Goals that are going to impact your life, goals that are not going to impact your life. Goals that are things you want to work on and goals that you don't want to work on. The concept of big goals and small goals comes from comparing your goals, what matters to you, what's going to change your life, what you want to prioritize, to everybody else. And we don't do comparison around here because the purpose of goals, what I believe personally is the purpose of goals, the reason why I talk about goals all the time.
I spent about 80% of my time talking about Regina, and the other 20% of the time I was praying for someone else to bring her up so I could talk about her more.
Is that I want you to live a life that you love living. Life is too short for you to live a life that you don't enjoy most of the time. Now, there's always gonna be ups and downs. There's always gonna be aspects of life that we don't love. But I want you to live a life that you love. I believe that goals have the power for you to create a life that you enjoy living. Period, the end. That's it. That's why I talk about goals, because I believe that any goal, whether you would consider it a big or a small goal, if it is important to you, it has the power to change your life. And it's funny because Cindy also just recently did a video about how a planner can't change your life. It's the effort that you put in. And I agree 100%. I have done lots of videos on goal planners. I think goal planners are great and fantastic. It's not the goal planner that's going to change your life. It's the effort that you put into the goals. And it doesn't matter whether you consider those goals big or small. What matters is that those goals are things that are going to make an impact in creating a life that you want to live. So the first step to letting go of this big goals versus small goals mindset is really picking goals that matter to you. And I thought I had a video on picking your goals and picking goals that matter to you, but it turns out I don't. So if you would benefit from that kind of a video, like how to pick goals that matter to you, let me know down in the comments and I can add that to my list. But there are endless possibilities in terms of what your goals could be. And I love getting ideas all over the place. I love getting ideas from my own brain. I love getting ideas from other people. I love getting ideas from friends and family in my life. But if I were to take that entire list of goal possibilities and only pick the big ones, I would likely be miserable. And I presume that you would be as well. If we only focused on goals that were big, we would not make as much progress, because instead of focusing on goals that matter to us, we would be focusing on goals that we think matter to everybody else, and we would way more likely give up on them. At the end of the day, I want you to pick goals that matter to you, whether that is drinking another glass of water, decluttering that closet, going for a walk around the block, signing up for that online course to further your career. It doesn't have to be a massive step for it to impact your life. And then I want you to treat those goals that you picked like you would any other goal. The next step would be breaking them down. And I know it might feel like, well, if it is a small goal, again, I want to get away from using those words, but I know that you all understand what I mean. If it is a goal that it doesn't feel like this big life-changing goal, it might not have as many breakdown components, right? If you take a bucket list type goal, right? And there's gonna be a lot of steps. It's gonna take a lot of time. It could be this like very long-term type of goal. That type of goal is going to have a lot of steps, and you're going to have to break that down. If you were to set up a less intensive but very important to you goal, like drinking another glass of water, that doesn't require a lot of breakdown, right? We don't need to break down those goals. So when you hear me talk about like you have to break down your goals, that's the way you're gonna achieve your goals, and you have goals that aren't quite as I can't even think of a better word than big, but a goal that isn't as involved, you're probably like, well, I don't know how to break down that goal because there's not a whole lot to break down. That's okay. That's totally fine. It doesn't have to be complicated to be impactful on your life. You figure out what the steps are, whether that's 1 step or 100 steps, you schedule time for them, and you follow through, and you build that momentum just like you would any other goal. Now, I totally lied when I said there were not gonna be tips or tricks in this video, because there absolutely are. Because one of the biggest issues or struggles we have with these goals that are not considered massive life-changing goals is that we don't see progress. It can be hard to see progress if I'm not like growing a business or getting a degree or whatever you would consider these big, scary goals. So I wanna give you 5 tips on seeing progress on these goals that you would consider smaller but still impactful to your life. Number 1, and you know what's coming, is to track it, right? The best way to see progress is to track it. If you watch my monthly goals video, I talked about my Apple Watch stat tracker that I have been using, and it's very simple, and I'm not trying to like hit these massive numbers, but I'm tracking it, and I'm seeing that I am at least doing something every single day. There aren't any zeros on the page. Is it having a massive impact on my life? No, right now, probably not. But I am able to see the progress and improvements that I'm making over prior months or prior weeks or prior days. Number 2 is to check in with your emotions. What I mean by this is that a lot of these kinds of goals, you're not gonna be able to, again, physically see the progress, but you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel that progress. And so if you wanna set a goal, let's say you wanna set a goal to be less stressed, right? Ask yourself before you start this goal, how do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10 about whatever this thing is? Maybe it's you want to have a cleaner home, a tidier home. Okay, how do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10, the state of my home right now? And then this might not be a good example because you absolutely can see the progress of your cleaner home, but not always, because if your home is anything like mine, there are definitely areas where it may not look cleaner than it was, or overall the home may kind of look about the same, but it feels different to me, right? So how do I feel about the state of my home on a scale of 1 to 10? Then you start implementing some of those action steps, and you start making some of those small changes. Then you ask yourself, how do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10? And you see if that has improved, right? You can feel the difference. And sometimes we just don't know that we feel different because we're not asking ourselves. We're not asking ourselves, how do you feel about this situation on a scale of 1 to 10? Tip number 3 is along the same lines, but it would be a little bit more numerical for those of us who are nerdy and like numbers. And I actually was inspired by this tip from Sarah from Heart Breathing. She talks about this a little bit when it comes to her like self-care related goals. So she will give her days a score on a 1 to 10, but it's 10 specific things, right? So she can get 10 points for 10 specific things that she's doing towards her self-care, and then she gives her day a score based on how many of those things she's doing. Now, before you run and implement that, she's been working on this for a long time. I would not suggest that you wake up tomorrow and start with a list of 10 self-care items and try to implement them all every single day and then give yourself a score of 1 to 10 every single day. That's a lot of things to implement. Maybe you start with 1. But I love the idea of working our way up to giving yourself a score. I'm thinking this could be beneficial for something like routines. Say you're trying to implement a morning routine, and a lot of us struggle with this all or nothing mindset, right? I either need to do my whole routine or I need to do none of my routine. Well, what if you gave yourself a score? You started with 5 steps, and on days that you did all 5 steps, you get a 5. And on days you do 2 of the steps, you get a 2. And then at the end of the month, you add them all up and have a total score. And then next month, you try and beat that score, right? And do it just a little bit more by giving yourself the average or the total for the month, rather than like oh, well, I only did 2 steps, so I didn't do my whole morning routine, so I did not get credit for that, and I get a 0, right? You didn't get a 0, you got a 2. So thinking about how you could track your progress with giving it a score for the goal as opposed to just an all or nothing mindset. Tip number 4 is asking yourself, does achieving this goal, or has the progress I made on this goal, does it free up time for other things? Time is our most valuable resource, and sometimes when we're working on these, as Cindy calls them, domestic type goals, it's really to help create systems and rhythms for us to free up time to do other things that you want to do. And you may not be able to really see that progress because you're spending that time doing things that make you happy, and you're not tracking that because you're enjoying that. So asking yourself, like, is implementing this cleaning routine giving me the time to spend more time with my family, and therefore ultimately creating a life that you want to live, right? So thinking about tracking, and I'm not telling you to start like necessarily tracking those happy things and how you're spending your time in ways that make you happy, but just thinking about it and just asking yourself, like, am I finding myself having more time to do other things? If so, you're likely making progress on some of those domestic type goals. And the last tip here is just to ask yourself, do you feel proud? Because at the end of the day, the purpose of goals is to help you create a life that you like living and that you're proud of living. And so maybe when you compare yourself to every person on social media or other people and their goals, you're like, I'm not doing what they're doing. I'm not achieving what they're achieving. Okay, great. I don't care. I don't care what they're doing. Are you proud of what you've done? Are you proud that you went from reading 0 books to 10 books in the year? Are you proud that you went from feeling like your house was a tornado to feeling like it's a smaller tornado, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this big, massive impact or change for it to impact you and for it to make you feel proud and feel like it's something that was worth you spending your time on. All of that to say, the only measurement your goal should be up against is it important to you? Does it matter to you? And that's it. In fact, most of the goals that I gave examples of here are the goals I work with people one-on-one on. I know that you might see one-on-one coaching and think, oh, well, I have to have a big goal, right? I have to be starting a business or writing a book, or I have to have this massive goal in order for one-on-one coaching to be worth it. And that's just not true. I've worked with people on routines, on decluttering, on finding a hobby, right? These goals that to the comparison lens might feel small are actually incredibly impactful and important to you. And if that's the case, maybe supporting you through one-on-one coaching would be the best way for you to feel like that goal is worth your effort and your time. So if you have a goal that you have been thinking about really prioritizing and maybe even working with a coach one-on-one on, but you've been feeling like it's too small, I want you to send me a DM on Instagram with what that goal is, and let's chat. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. So while she was reviewing that goals, what your goals are, how this could be beneficial